joined right now by the head football coach at the University of Texas, Steve Sarkisian. Coach, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Coach. We appreciate you spending some time with us.
Yes, sir.
A little quicker flight than you thought. You're supposed to get here at 10. You're here at 9:30, so we are the beneficiary of that and to get the first conversation. Now, let me ask you this. Starting the summer, I keep hearing, because we talked to you right before the spring, and you kind of laid out what the goals were for the spring. Then we heard from you, and then you talked about the summer being critical for your football team, the month of June, and the ability to get hands-on with some young players and work with some of the veteran players. Here we are in mid-July now. How do you think that 6 weeks has gone?
I think it's gone really well. I kind of took a step back. I said, okay, where are we at as a program? What do we need to do? And when you really look at it from last year, we have 35 new scholarship faces on this team now. 7 transfers, 28 freshmen of our 85. So becoming the team that we wanted to be was really critical. So we spent a lot of time on team building, team bonding, and not so much coach to player, but player to player, and making those connections, which I think inevitably is vastly important. But also the development of the individual players. Coming out of spring, we did a lot of individual meetings with each player about things that we wanted them to work on to get ready for fall camp. So we tried to address those things as we went through summer. And then also getting to know these freshmen, 14 guys were here in January with transfers and freshmen, but that's another 21 guys that showed up here right after Memorial Day that we had to start to get to know. Personally, we had to start to get to know as a player and a skill set, and then start getting them prepared for fall camp. But I think all in all, it's gone really well. We've got a couple more weeks to go before we crank this thing up.
How about for your coaches? I mean, it's been a very intense recruiting process that you guys have gone through, and congratulations on some of the great success that you've had. But for those guys, how about them? Do they take a step back to me? Are these coaches now taking a step back to spend a little bit more time with their families, because it's 24/7. You're constantly on the phone. You're on Twitter. You're on Facebook. Those guys, is this their time to kind of step back a little bit too? Before it starts?
It is. Bucky, like this recruiting calendar has shifted. The calendar itself hasn't shifted as much, but this idea of June official visits,
right.
This idea of kids committing earlier and earlier now in the process, because the majority of them sign in December now, makes June really intense. The players, when you think about our players, they're off right there about they get about almost the month of May off to start up for summer.
Sure.
Well, our coaches are on the road recruiting. They're spring recruiting in May. Then they walk right back into June to all the skill development with our own players and our own team. And then all of a sudden you have kids coming on official visits, unofficial visits, and oh, by the way, we've got camps going on, whether they're here or the mega camps that go on outside. So June is really intense. I try to give our coaches some time in the month of July to kind of recharge their batteries, to make sure that they're conditioned and ready to go for August. But they've done a heck of a job. I'm proud of our staff, and not just our full-time coaches, our entire recruiting department, everybody on board to put ourselves in position for what we think is going to be a great fall.
Obviously, Coach can't talk about specific name recruits, but a lot of momentum. I think we all know that, and where it's at with all the commitments for the next cycle. You mentioned 7 transfers. We know the name Quinn Ewers. We know the guys who have come in. How have those 7 assimilated into your program?
I think they've done really well. Obviously we can start with Quinn. That's kind of the hot topic, the hot name. I think Quinn's done a heck of a job. One thing to remember for Quinn, he was a reclassified kid, so he was a high school senior up until training camp, and then he went to Ohio State. So his transition to college, I think, was a little bit different than most. So I think him getting with us in January and having a real winter conditioning program and getting himself through spring practice and into summer has been good for him. I'm excited for what he can do. Ryan Watts has been another great addition from Ohio State at corner, has really done a nice job for us. The addition of Jaleel Billingsley, Ajay Hall have been good to us from an offensive perspective. Isaiah Nair had a really good spring. We're looking forward to seeing what he can do. And then another name that jumps out to me is Tuck. Tucker Dorsey, coming from James Madison late, a linebacker who was a really productive All-American at the FCS level. I think is going to allow us to do some different things and give us some more depth at the linebacker position. He's a really productive player. So all in all, I think the additions that we made through the portal have been good. I've always been one in the portal to think it's not just taking players to take them. Are they going to have an impact on your team? And I feel really good about the additions that we made through the portal. These guys are going to come in and have a real impact for us this fall.
Coach, you see a real change in Hudson over in his second year with you, under what you guys are trying to do with him. Can you see that maturity just in his look? I see it just in his look as a kid. He's going from a kid to starting to get to be a grown man.
Well, I think so. Inevitably, we live in this society now. You guys hear this all the time from me, but like instant gratification. Social media tells us, if a kid's a 4 or 5 star, he should come in and be a great player right now. Well, there's still this thing called development that we believe in, and especially at that position. And, he was a true freshman in a whole nother system, a whole nother staff. We come in, he kind of got thrown to the wolves a little bit. Didn't play poorly. There was moments where he did some really good things for us. I think looking back on it now, when we watch cut-ups, he cringes sometimes like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. So there is a level of confidence in him on the field. But to your point, Bucky, I think one thing we notice is the confidence off the field. The leadership, the understanding, the ability to step out in front, which is all, critical factors of being a quarterback, especially at the University of Texas.
That was going to be a question. We want to ask you about the freshmen, the 21 that are in and that came in summer, but the leadership of your team. I know you've talked openly about last year that maybe there were some fractures, there wasn't enough. You talked about being connected to your team early enough. All that seems to be in a good place, but the leadership, we've heard about Rojo and him leading these July workouts, and we're going to get to talk to him today, hopefully, who have really emerged as the guys that want to turn around a 5-7 kind of season.
Yeah, I'm harping on how young we are as a team, but the older players that we have been awesome. And I was fortunate enough to bring 5 guys today. And when you think about all 5 of them, from Roschon Johnson, Bijan Robinson, Jordan Whittington, DeMarvion Overshone, and Ovi, those 5 guys that kind of exemplify what we want from our kind of junior, senior leadership on our team. And I love that I'm able to bring veterans this year. Last year I brought Bijan as a sophomore. Already that didn't feel like a good feeling for me. So to be able to bring older players, experienced players, one that have been leading us throughout spring and throughout summer, make me feel better just about our roster, that they're living examples for the younger players of what it looks like to be a Longhorn.
Steve, you see for Bijan, do you see the offense starting to really turn towards him, not only in the run game but in the passing game too, to get him? I know we all talk about let's get him in space. That's all we'll hear about is, get the kid in space. How many touches does he get? Well, nobody knows how many touches you're going to get. It all depends on which game it is, how the game is going. But can you see him? Because we'll also talk about how well does the offensive line play. He doesn't need great offensive line play. He's just one of those guys when you watch him run. If you can sustain – give him a half a second or so, that's all you need. It's not sustaining blocks with him. It's just making sure you're on the body when it comes to his running game.
I think the one thing with Bijan that you love about him and is unique about him is the versatility, right? He is a in-between the tackles runner. He's a edge perimeter runner. He's a route runner out of the backfield. You can split him out and run routes. So there's a variety of ways where you can get him involved in the game. I think one thing that we've tried to assess as a staff is to say, how do we incorporate the other guys too? Roschon Johnson gets one start last season, or 2 starts, and goes over 100 yards in both games. So, and then Keelan Robinson, what he can bring. So, again, it's making sure that when Bijan's getting his touches and that we're putting him in place to be successful and that he can have an impact on the game. And when there is so much attention on him, that making sure that we've got enough weapons surrounding him that where these guys can hurt you, whether it's an Xavier Worthy, an Isaiah Nair, a Roschon Johnson, a Keelan Robinson, a Jordan Whittington, to where, man, if you're going to put all your focus on number 5, these other guys will hurt you. And if you don't put all your focus on number 5, then he can be a really special player for us.
Head coach Steve Sarkisian with us here at Radio Row, Big 12 Football Media Days. Longhorns are here, and I didn't know we weren't alerted that Jordan Whittington is coming. That's cool. So 5 guys here, and it sounds like Jordan's having a great offseason as well. Everybody hoping he can have a full season of good health this year. So you feel great about your skill guys. That's pretty obvious. How's Coach Flood feel about what he's working with up front, including the young guys and the great freshman class that you signed, and how's PK and the defense feeling about where they are depth-wise heading into camp starting in August?
Yeah, I think a couple things up front. There's nothing's better than healthy competition, and I think now we have a healthy competition on the offensive line. Where I don't know if I could have said that a year ago. We were kind of patching it all together and hoping we could hang on to where now we've got a healthy competition. We've got players who have been in our system for over a year now, who are very comfortable with what we're doing, with an influx of 7 freshmen now that are walking in the door that want to play, that came here to compete and to play. And so I think for both sides, it's been healthy. The younger players want to learn and want to know what to do and how to do it and why to do it, like the older players know. But the older players know we've got a hungry group of young guys that are coming to compete for jobs. And so that part's been good. I think that's bringing out the best in everybody. I think defensively, a couple things. One, I think from a defensive line perspective, Bo Davis has had the impact that we want for PK, to where a year in now, these guys have really bought into his approach to what he does. I think he's the best D-line coach in the country, and we need our defensive line to play that way. We've got talented people. I think, again, the depth at the linebacker spot has been helpful as well. Jalen Ford has really stepped up this offseason, which has been good for us. The addition of Tucker Dorsey at linebacker has been good, so that now we can utilize the versatility of a DeMarvion Overshown. So that's been helpful. And then obviously some changes in the secondary. We moved some pieces around, moving Anthony Cook back to safety from the nickel star position, moving Keaton Crawford to safety, moving Jaron Thompson back to safety, moving Jade Barron into the nickel star position, and then putting Jalen Gilbo in there behind him, a newcomer, hopefully allows us to play a little tighter coverage. We want to be a more attacking style defense. We want to be more aggressive. But yet to do all that, you got to kill the run. You got to stop the run first, and that's where the big guys up front come to play.
With all the things that you did in the spring when you had some of these newcomers in, Coach, did you get that feel of, I know you talked to us, last time we talked to you about the football IQ of it with these kids, to understand this third down is the most important third down of the game. There's 7 minutes left in the game. I know we got a lot of football to be played, but at this particular point in this game, we need this stop right now. Not two series from now, not right. The next series, but right now. Is this IQ? Can you feel that? So I mean, did you as a staff work on those certain parts during the spring? As guys, this is the time for the stop. No, I know it's practice, and you need to understand something. We're working on it, but this is what we have to do in games. This is where we have to get it done.
Without question. I think third down wins is critical, especially in the second half of football games, and turnovers. Those were 2 areas where I felt like we could really improve, and that's just understanding the game, right? It's right. Understanding the types of plays that might come your way from a defensive perspective, why they're in certain formations, and anticipating route combinations and playing them better. But 2, being able to affect the quarterback to create errant throws, or strip sacks, or whatever that is, punching the ball out. But you have to practice those things. You have to put guys in position to do it, and then in practice, when those things happen, we have to celebrate them. Sure. Then you can't wait to just get to the film and talk about it. You have to celebrate them in the moment, and that's something that we've kind of shifted our focus to doing in spring ball, in this summer, and then ultimately come camp. That we've got to celebrate the turnovers. We've got to celebrate the third down stops. We've got to celebrate the third down stops in the red area. Those are 4-point plays. You get a 3rd and 5 stop on the 20-yard line going in, you're forcing a field goal as opposed to potentially giving up a touchdown. So those are all big wins for us.
Football IQ, big. Coach, you personally, your second trip here, we got to talk to you last year when you came up. Obviously a whole different circumstance. What's in your head about where you are with this program, understanding of the program, your coaching staff, which a lot were new last year? How are you feeling 1 year later?
I feel great. I had a mentor of mine that I worked for about 8 years in Pete Carroll, and we talked about just whenever you take over a program, there's 1 or 2 ways to go about it. The easy transition for everybody is to try to do as many things similar to the previous staff in the previous regime, because that'll be easier on the players, that'll be easier on the training staff, that'll be easier for everybody involved. But when you do it that way, you have to be willing to accept similar results. The other way is to go implement all that you believe in and what you want to do offensively, defensively, structurally, recruiting. And that's probably a tougher transition for everybody involved, players, coaches, staff, everybody. And there's going to be bumps in the road. It's going to be hard when you do it that way. You might have to make tough decisions and when players aren't adhering to the core values of your organization. But ultimately, when you work your way through those rough waters, now you put yourself in position to go achieve the success that you think you're capable of achieving. And I think that's where we're at. Year one was tough, and there was some rocky roads and some bumpy waters. But in the end, man, I feel really good today about where we're at as a team. I love our leadership. I love the influx of the new players. I love the camaraderie of the staff. We're just a much more tight kind of organization and in a line kind of from a core value standpoint to where I think we're ready to go do something special. But ultimately, you got to put it on the grass and you got to make it come to life.
Yeah, the importance of this football season, whether you're remaining in the Big 12 after this year or going to the SEC, the importance of this season right now in the moment as it gets ready to happen. How important is that to you and the staff? I'm not talking about, do we need 9 wins? Do we need 10? Do we need 8? The importance of championship football, which means being in a championship game, being right back here in a championship game. How important is that to you guys?
That's the whole key to the drill, and I think that's one of the challenges for our players, because all they keep reading about is where we're headed.
Right.
Well, the 5 guys that I got here aren't ever going to play in that other conference. They're playing in the Big 12 right now, and we have made no bones about it, and I haven't made any bones with you guys. The goal is to be here December 3rd. And to be playing in this game. That's what our focus is on, and I think we've got a team and a staff equipped to go do that. But like I said, ultimately you've got to put it to the grass. You got to make it come to life, and I think we're on the right trajectory. There's going to be a lot of tough games. This is a tremendous conference. There's really good teams, very kind of just balanced league. When you start looking at this league top to bottom, week in, week out, we're going to be in real battles, but ultimately it's going to come down to, I believe, our leadership that we have that maybe we didn't quite have last year, but I think we have in place for this fall.
Physicality of your football team?
No question.
Different than last year already?
No, not without question.
Coach, appreciate it. We know you got a long day of talking. We really appreciate the first conversation.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate
Always a
you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Good luck.
Good
luck.
We'll see you.
Absolutely. Steve Sarkisian wrapping up.